Hello and welcome to the second podcast of Goa Dialogues produced by the International Centre Goa or ICG. Our guest today is Tilak Devasher, who is a frequent commentator on security issues, especially pertaining to India's neighbourhood, and a prolific writer on Pakistan post retirement. He is currently at ICG for a public lecture later today on Before and After Operation Sindoor. Tilak, welcome to our podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Pushkar, for having me. Pleasure talking to you.
A very quick introduction to begin with. Tilak Devasher retired as Special Secretary, Cabinet Secretariat, Government of India in 2014. During his professional career, he served in Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi, and overseas. He is member National Security Advisory Board, NSAB, consultant Vivekananda International Foundation, Emeritus Resource Faculty at Rashtriya Raksha University, and Distinguished Fellow, United Services Institution of India. Tilak is the author of 4 widely acclaimed books on Pakistan. Pakistan, Courting the Abyss, published in 2016, Pakistan at the Helm, 2018, Pakistan, the Balochistan Conundrum, 2019, and the Pashtuns, A Contested History, 2022. I could find 3 of your books. The 4th seems to be out of print or is at least not available in Goa. The Pashtuns. He has also edited 3 books for the Vivekananda International Foundation: Pakistan Insights 2019, Pakistan Insights 2020, and Pakistan Insights 2021-22. Apart from his books, he writes regularly for newspapers, magazines, and think tank journals. He also appears regularly on TV talk shows. Tilak is an alumnus of Mayo College, Ajmer, and St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Tilak, thank you for joining us. And let me begin very quickly with a first question, which is probably a larger question about our neighborhood and the world around us today. International politics is considered to be fluid, always changing. I mean, there's more stability than less at other times. And we are currently at a time where there seems to be less stability, both at the regional level and at the global level. So we are at a juncture where in South Asia, things are fluid, moving, and in so many ways unstable. Globally, the situation seems to be the same, not just about Ukraine, but also what's happening in the Middle East and Israel and Israel and Palestine. Do you think that the current period, the one we are currently living in over the last couple of years, is probably being more challenging for our national security than compared to, say, at any other time since independence, with the exception of course, the wars with China in 62, with Pakistan in 65, and again in 1971, and maybe a couple of other occasions, maybe around the time we conducted our nuclear tests or around the time of Kargil. But, is it the worst kind of security environment that we are witnessing, which is a big challenge for our current government?
Certainly, I think the global security situation is in flux. Alliances, the wars, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israel-Middle East. So the global security is certainly in flux. And while I won't say it's the worst situation for India, let history be the judge of that. But it's certainly very challenging.
Yeah.
Because for the past 20 years, we had taken a lot of, invested a lot in the relationship with the US, and just as at the US. In the US also, there was a bipartisan consensus on the relationship with India, especially. Now, unfortunately, over the last 3 months, this seems to have changed. And there are certainly stresses, there's no point denying the fact. There are stresses that have come in the relationship. Now, it has had consequences which you couldn't imagine 3 months ago. The China-India, India-China relationship again seems to be in a bit of a transition.
That's a big change.
Yeah, that's a major change. And likewise, the India-Russia relationship, which is always strong, I think it got further strengthened. So there are a lot of moving parts. That's why it looks so challenging, because there are a lot of moving parts at the moment. And at one time when the US said that India should be buying Russian oil to stabilize the situation, today we are being accused that our purchase of Russian oil is fueling the war with Ukraine.
Profiteering, I think. is the word.
Profiteering, yeah. I mean, it's a very strong word to use.
Yeah.
So the flux is that what has made the situation so challenging. And everybody is keeping everybody on its toes. And I think even analysts, before they're writing one column, something different has happened. And then, of course, we had our own engagement with Pakistan of following Pahalgam and Operation Sindoor.
So writing op-eds has become more challenging than ever, certainly.
And making any predictions for the future.
Correct.
For the people in the business,
Correct.
it's become very difficult.
Yeah.
How do you don't know what's going to happen next week. Now, suddenly the US has announced an ambassadorial nominee. Of course, it'll take some time. You'll be evaluated by the Senate and things. But this has its own dynamic.
Yes.
Because this person is very close to the president, the President Trump.
Correct.
So he brings a certain kind of heft, which maybe another ambassador would not have.
Yeah.
So uske kya implications are, so lots of irons in the fire. I think.
Yeah. No, I don't think anyone would find it comfortable to be in a seat where you have to, have, advise the Prime Minister.
Yeah. And the wrong decisions at this stage.
Yeah.
Or not taking an opportunity at this stage.
Yeah.
Could, have unintended consequences for the future.
Now, what seems bothersome in that context, I mean, you pointed out to the uncertainties that you see in the region as well as around the world, is that no decision you take will probably be the correct decision or the wrong decision, because you never know. I mean, as you said, there's so many moving parts. I mean, we could today say that, okay, we are going to have developed closer relationship with China and the BRICS. But 2 months later, you could have a complete reversal in how the United States approaches India. And then what do you do? Are you going to abandon your, friends from now, 3 months later? Or, the whole talk about strategic alliances, that is something else which worries me in this context. Because what strategic alliances seems to suggest is exactly that uncertainty, that we have a close relationship with you, but it depends. It'll depend on what happens next. What do you think?
Yeah. You see, here I think the pivot is national interest. So we are realigning or rearranging our relationships with China, stronger relationship with Russia, keeping in mind our national interest. Similarly, these countries, they're not doing any favors to India.
Right.
Because it is their national interest. It was the US national interest, a bipartisan support for the last 20 years, that a strong relationship with India is in the United States' national interest. Now, for some reason or the other, in this administration, a view seems to have emerged that the relationship with India is secondary to the tariffs and the punishment that you levy on India because of buying Russian oil. I don't think so. I mean, I'm nobody to say this. I don't see how that is US national interest. So I have a feeling that sometimes in the near future, hopefully, that there will be a course correction. But once that course correction takes place, presuming it takes place, would we have moved in a different direction towards China and Russia, that course correction may be too late? There is a possibility. But I mean, if you keep totally centered on national interest, what is in your national interest? Then I think we can navigate this turbulence well. But if you go by the, US has been a good friend and all that, I think your national interest is one. And one thing, if you see over the long term, the one steadfast element in this entire moving parts is India's relationship with Russia. Russia has always stood by us.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are going to be doing the new deals, providing transfer of technology and giving you the codes and things like that, SU-57. So that is something which you have to take into account and build upon, irrespective of what the United States were to do. You see now what the President Trump and the US administration has done is they've now created a doubt in the minds.
Trust khatam kar diya.
Trust khatam kar diya.
See, that's, I mean, even if
That
there
even
is...
if it depends, it's so whimsical.
Huh.
If your entire national interest can be placed up or placed on its head so whimsically, फिर long-term relationship कैसे? How do you develop a long-term relationship?
Correct. Because, I mean, I think that's what Fareed Zakaria was saying on CNN, that, you know, even if, I mean, there is a course correction and things get back to normal, but that normal will never be the same,
Never be the
at least for a long time.
Yeah.
Because the trust factor is going to be gone. And when we talk of India's, you know, great relationship with Russia, the trust factor remains.
This remains there.
Right?
But they've always stood by us.
Yeah. One way of looking at our difficult relationship with Pakistan, and we're still in the neighborhood, and we are going to remain with our neighborhood. I mean, we can't choose our neighborhood. Sometimes we wonder where there would be if we had a more benign neighborhood. Okay, so one way of looking at our difficult relationship with Pakistan is that it is influenced by deeply structural factors, including the multiple partitions. Sam Dalrymple has a book on 5 partitions, and I don't want to go into that. But, you know, we can still talk about 47 and we can talk about 71. I mean, definitely. At the same time, I think despite these structural factors, I mean, at different times, leaderships in both countries have looked at each other, have tried to mend, the relations. And at different times, leadership on both countries, not necessarily one before the other or after, they have made a difference in terms of the kind of actions undertaken at that time. And so, I mean, what comes to mind immediately is, the 71 war when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto is the prime minister and Indira Gandhi is the prime minister. Surely leadership made a difference. Then going further to say, when General Musharraf is in power and Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee is in India. And now when, Field Marshal Munir and Prime Minister Modi. To what extent do you think leadership has pushed India's policies towards Pakistan or Pakistan's policies towards India towards a more hostile, one rather than a more benign one? Until recently, we had some kind of an uneasy peace between the two countries, and suddenly you have a change of leadership in Pakistan, and things go south. So, how do you see the role of leadership in the current context?
You see, leadership is that last 10% in a relationship, I think. You mentioned a very important point about structural issues in Pakistan. Here's the way Pakistan was created and the whole Pakistan movement baggage that it carries with it was premised on the notion of the two-nation theory, which Munir recently also repeated.
Right.
That Hindus and Muslims cannot live together, that the Muslims must have their own homeland. That is something which is carried on post-creation of Pakistan. So that being the fundamental impulse for the creation of Pakistan and the continuation of Pakistan, it becomes very difficult for any Pakistan leader to really have a normalized relationship with India. Because if people say, and I have a question, if you think that Hindus and Muslims can live together, you can live together with India. Because they always define India as Hindu India. If you can live together with Hindu India, then why did you create Pakistan? So somehow the other being anti-Hindu, anti-India is come to be in the very DNA of Pakistan. So any Pakistani leader can normalize relations in a very marginal manner. Because in the back of his mind, he's carrying this baggage of 47 onward. And on top of it, then you have the Kashmir issue.
Correct.
So that complicates your matters even more. Now, India is in an easier position because we've never believed in the two-nation theory. We've always had a secular approach that, we are happy with the territories. Whoever is living within the premises of India, the boundaries of India, is an Indian. And we have no problem look at the relationship we have with the Middle East, how they have been improved.
That's been a huge change over the
Huge
last
change,
year.
And that is because the impulse for India, you're coming from that you believe in secularism, that you can live and talk to anybody. In the case of Pakistan, that is not so. And I don't see that changing. So whether it is Jinnah, whether it is Bhutto, Benazir, Nawaz Sharif, Musharraf, or Asim Munir. Now, Asim Munir has gone to the other extreme. See, he's in the Zia mold. But unlike Zia, he's also Hafizul Quran. He thinks he knows Islam best because he can read or recite the Quran, by heart. So he's coming from that background too. So which gives him into a different direction altogether. So I think बड़ा मुश्किल है to have any kind of friendly to छोड़ो. To even have normalized relations with Pakistan is very difficult unless Pakistan re-examines its roots. Does Islam form the basis of nationhood?
And even though they have the example of 1971 when Bangladesh becomes independent.
Yeah. Because for the Bengalis, language was more important part of their identity than was Islam.
That seems like a very gloomy perspective that, India's relations with Pakistan will pretty much, going forward, they are going to pretty much remain what they were, over the last few decades. I mean, periods of, uneasy peace, followed by, conflicts, limited in however ways, maybe, hopefully not wars, full-scale wars. But that's really, do you see that as, I don't know, I mean, as an obstacle to India's further rise as a great power, being always caught up in, this border problem, Kashmir problem, or something else, security problem? Because it's not just Pakistan on our borders. Now, since the regime change in Bangladesh, we have had to start worrying about Bangladesh a little bit too, as well as China making deep inroads in terms of its investments, in terms of its political and economic support. It really is a very, very difficult neighborhood in some ways.
It is. And also one other thing to link up with the previous question. You see, India's nationalism is territorial. If we have a certain territory, we'll defend it. We don't want anybody else's territory, but we will not give up an inch of ours. Pakistan's nationalism is not territorial, it is religious. They believe that where there is a Muslim majority should be part of Pakistan. So Kashmir's whole argument of Kashmir is on that basis. Now again, there is no meeting ground. Between territorial nationalism and religious nationalism, where is the meeting ground?
Correct.
There cannot be any meeting ground. So and I think the way India is dealing with this challenge is by totally ignoring it and shutting Pakistan up.
Which has been quite successful. I mean,
Which is very successful.
until now.
Yeah, which is very successful. That if we talk to you, we'll talk to you only on terrorism. And if we talk to you, we'll talk to you about POK. Or we don't want any trade. And as we said, trade and terror cannot go together.
As I recall, your position for a while has been that any dialogue with Pakistan is futile. Nothing much of significance will come out of it. So, going by your remarks just now, would you do you continue to hold that position?
If you're on substantive issues, yes. But between two neighbors, that's why we have missions. Fishermen, for example, who get arrested, people straying across the border. So these interstate relationship dialogue will continue. But if you talk about dialogue at a political level, or even at the foreign secretary level, to discuss fundamental issues, I don't see that happening in the near future. Because if one state is continuing to foment terrorism in your country, अब क्या बात करोगे उससे?
बिल्कुल. Now, moving on from regional politics, regional developments, one influential theory in international relations is that great powers, already great powers, those which are recognized as the great powers, try to keep rising powers, and India still counts as a rising power rather than an acknowledged great power, try to keep rising powers in check or try to contain them. I mean, of course, the term containment goes back to the Cold War period with the, United States trying to contain that's the Soviets and the Soviets trying to do the same. Now, what we have seen happen in South Asia is that China has continuously, in a very, very determined way, tried to tried to contain our, great power ambitions uh, through Pakistan. Through directly, we do share border with China, and that makes life difficult for us as well. For us, and in the case of the United States, we have seen the United States move from a policy of containment and no closer relationship with Pakistan, again through Pakistan, to one where it supports us for the last, as was the case over the last 20 years. And it seems to be gone back to containment under Trump. You know, tariffs are being described as sanctions, literally. And, even though some kind of dialogue continues to take place, one is not sure where this will all go to, head to. So, how do you see India responding to that? And do you subscribe to the idea that there is some kind of containment at the regional level by China and the United States taking place in the subcontinent?
You see, China has used Pakistan as a very low-cost option to keep India bogged down. So the policy of Chinese containment is very much there. To give certain amount of money, certain amount of arms. They even went to the extent of giving them nuclear weapons. Basically to keep India in South Asia and not to expand. Because
Correct.
the threat to China, and they also recognize the two old civilizations, and now India exceeds in population and is growing technologically and growing economically, is their threat in the Chinese mindset, because they have always considered themselves as the Middle Kingdom. Whether it is anybody,
Yeah.
even the communists, they think in the Middle Kingdom, everybody else has to come and pay homage. So it is in their interest that they've, openly, they haven't declared it as such,
Yeah.
but through their policy, you know that they're trying to contain you. The US is a new element, in the sense that for 20 years, as I mentioned earlier, the bipartisan consensus of building up India, strengthening India, so that India could stand and assist the US in its long-term battle against the Chinese growth. Because China is on a growth spurt, whether it's the Chinese Navy, whether it is Chinese economy. In every which way, China is the only power that's going to challenge the US in the next 15 to 20 years. So they thought that India would be a good check on Chinese growth in Asia. But there has been a change. The change is, for whatever reason,
And it seems illogical.
yeah, it seems, people are perplexed. That, on what reason have you gone out of your way? It's literally going out of the way to impose 25% punitive sanctions for buying oil. For what? For buying oil from Russia. China buys more oil. US is buying stuff from Russia.
And the president did not know about it.
So he claims.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether this is going to be a long-term thing. Damage, as we discussed earlier, has been done. But whether there will be a course correction back to what it was before. Because, the entire relationship has got hinged on these tariffs. Earlier, the Indo-US relationship was multi-dimensional, multi-domain.
At multi-levels,
Yeah.
multiple levels.
Whether it's AI, whether it's quantum, whether it was technology, anything you name, space. And now, but the whole relationship has got deranged because of just the question of tariffs, which is whimsical. Why 50%? Why 25%? 30 can you have 75%. There is no check.
Yeah, he's just putting a
There's
number.
no rationality. So, and the rest of the world too has reacted very adversely. Look at Brazil.
Yeah.
Look at Canada. Europe has been browbeaten.
Yeah, and Canada is your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
You are the
closest
closest
friend,
trading partner.
Closest relationship with anybody that the US had was with Canada. And now the Canadians have taken a 180-degree this again.
Yeah.
So this trust has become very important. You have a national interest, but the trust between countries. So yes, I think there is a deliberate attempt by China certainly to keep India down, by the US to bend India to its will. And there I think that President Trump has met more than his match in Prime Minister Modi, because Mr. Modi is not going to bend. He's not going to accept whatever it is that the US, because India is certainly not going to sacrifice the relationship with Russia for the sake of 25% of tariffs.
In some ways, we seem to be back to the decades of, what is called US imperialism.
Yeah.
The high-handedness with which, the United States, at least with its poor neighbors in Central America and South America, dealt with, or even elsewhere in the world. The signs are not good. As we said,
I think for India, the best course would be to continue whatever negotiations or talks, but try and ride out these 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Manage 3.5 years. Because in the US itself, there is a lot of pushback.
Correct.
But the point is that he has a majority both in the Senate and the Congress.
Correct.
So they are not in a willingness, and he controls the levers of power.
And we have to see where the economy goes in 2 years. How do these tariffs play out at the level of the domestic economy?
Adversely, at first, initial reports are tariffs are adversely.
He doesn't want labor data to be,
published
of a kind which shows him badly, which shows things to be going south. Anyway, so the course correction, if it happens, will not be a return to normal as we knew it 3 months ago.
Not for some time, at least.
Not for some time. And a change of leadership is probably going to make a difference if it does, because
after 3.5
years. Yes, after 3.5 years. Where does this leave us in terms of the kind of great power, aspirations, ambition that we have? Because what history tells us is that great powers become great powers through wars. Now, until 2 years ago, we would have said, well, there is not much space for prolonged wars, or of the kind of wars that we are seeing that is being waged by Israel and that is being waged by Russia. But it seems that we are again returning to the days of full-scale wars over long periods. In the case of Pakistan, as you mentioned, prospects for any durable peace don't seem to be there. The prospect for war seems as likely as that of durable peace. Where do you see India? Which way do you see India heading? Because one thing that is probably not going to change is India is going to continue, despite everything that is wrong, will continue to grow economically. Now, that economic might, would that change things? Perhaps not so much in the neighborhood, but surely in terms of our relations with the great powers, with European countries, with others.
I think, like in every challenge, there's an opportunity. And this is what the government is doing. Yesterday there was an announcement that we are now tying up with France for development of a engine, for aircraft engine.
Correct.
Because GE has been dragging its feet for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think we are looking for different outlets that come with this challenge of the US. India needs to now look at plan B. I think so far we've navigated it well. Let's see what happens in the future. Also, I think from the reports that I have read, that even with 50% tariffs, the impact on GDP will not be too severe, provided you are able to diversify into other areas.
Find other markets.
And this, I think, India is doing.
Yeah.
And also, India is focusing on the domestic market. So this GST, for example, announcement which are going to make, they're going to bring down GST rate. So to use the strength of your domestic market.
And it reduces the impact of tariffs, to some extent.
Exactly. So that within the country itself comes to the wicket and, starts purchasing more because the prices have been reduced. So that will minimize the impact. So I think we may be able to stand more on our feet with this challenge and convert this into an opportunity. But I don't see the trajectory of India's economic rise and growth being too adversely impacted by these tariffs. I think we have that resilience because of a large domestic market and other friendships that we have developed over the years, whether it is France, whether it's Germany, whether it's Russia, and other countries that will be able to divert away from the US.
Later today, you'll be giving a talk on or before. The title of the talk is On Before. before and after Operation Sindoor, India, Pakistan, and the Great Powers. Now, one of the things that comes up in discussions in Operation Sindoor is that after the Pahalgam terrorist attack, India's policymakers had a range of options. You know, not exactly doing nothing, but doing more in diplomatic terms, some combination of diplomacy and military action, perhaps. Some combination of economic, although our trade relationship with Pakistan is meager. So, but there would have been a range of options. Now, in the end, we did what we did, which was target terrorist camps. It was a military option combined with some diplomatic offensive. Uh, the question is, what were the various range of options that the government might have considered, and why did it eventually choose the option that it did, which is Operation Sindhu?
You see, the nature of the outrage dictated the range of options. You see, it was focused on targeting Hindus. These were not just tourists, because they asked their religion, asked them to recite the Kalma, and then shot them in point blank in front of their families. And these tourists were from all over India. So the outrage was a pan-India. And people were seething that you are doing this deliberately for whatever motivations you have. As a democratically elected government, it had to factor in the feelings of the people. The outrage, the horror that the outrage sort of people felt. So the government had no option but to be seen to take decisive action. Now, India had thought that after Uri and after Balakot, the message would have gone across to Pakistan that, look, we will not accept terror in interstate relations and we will get back at you. 5 saal tak to they accepted it. Then they did Pahalgam. So this time then the action had to be decisive. So India then planned it meticulously that they will strike only at the heads of the snakes, in whether it is Muridke or whether it is Bahawalpur, Lashkar and Jaish and about 7 or 8 other terror camps.
Correct.
It was limited to that. India didn't go in to hit either civilian targets or even military targets. It was limited to that. And everybody was told that our objective is limited. It is precise and it is limited. It is when Pakistan escalated, to trying to hit a whole lot of other targets, civilian and correct military, and we were able to foil all of them. Then India reacted on the 8th and especially on the 9th by attacking their airfields, by neutralizing their air defense systems, and so on. So I don't think so the government had a choice. They would have considered a range of options. But ultimately the kinetic option was considered and implemented, and also the non-kinetic. Let's not forget, in this thing about kitne gire, kitne mare, we forget the non-kinetic action. I think that for me in the long term, holding the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, together with the other measures, withdrawal the strength of the diplomatic missions, stopping trade, blocking Atari, Vaga, that has had a huge impact. So there were non-kinetic actions also, but people wanted to see, to take the revenge because of the nature of the atrocity.
Yeah.
If the atrocity had been of a different kind, maybe the reaction may have been different. But this was too targeted a thing on Hindus for the government to have ignored.
From questions on India's security and so on, I want to turn to Pakistan again. I think we have done a lot of work in the last 10, 15 years, specifically in Pakistan, 4 books. And the question is this. China seems to be going in all the way into Pakistan for economic reasons. Countries which have gone into Pakistan in the past, the Soviet Union, before that the British, or at least parts of Afghanistan, Soviet Union and the United States have learned their lessons. Do you think that's what awaits China in the coming years?
I think China is already learning their lesson. You see, China had a very strong political relationship, strong military relationship, strong nuclear relationship. They didn't have economic relationship. So the China-Pakistan economic corridor was meant to give the fourth leg to the relationship, that you must have a good, strong economic relationship to bind the two countries together. But the initial promise of CPEC was investment of $62 billion by China. But it has plateaued out at $22, $24 billion. The last 4 or 5 years, no fresh investment is coming in. And the reason for that is China realizes that Pakistan is not in a position to either absorb this money or to repay them. So it's kind of a dead investment. Even though they're looking at Gwadar for strategic purposes, both the port and the airfield, they realize that Pakistan is not capable enough to give the economic dimension to the relationship. So they've now beginning to realize that Pakistan is, military is okay, political is okay, you support them in the UN. But if you want to have economic boots on the ground, by boots on the ground, I don't mean military, but I mean economic boots on the ground, power plants, roads, investments. They're not going to give you the return. So it is like throwing more good money after bad money.
No, this is something which is harder to understand actually, because when you think of anybody putting in money into something, I mean, you put money in the stock market, foreign investors come in and they can fly out, literally in hours, right? But when you invest that kind of money in terms of physical infrastructure and all those other things over a number of years, you just can't pull back the way you can from stock markets. I mean, physical capital is not mobile at all. I mean, so in that context, sometimes you have to wonder, I mean, how exactly would China's security interests as well be served by investing so heavily in Pakistan? I mean, somewhere, that has to be reconciled by the Chinese themselves, to figure out, I mean, have they done the wrong thing? Because political stability is a minimal condition, some kind of political stability if you are investing, in a country which is alternating between, one dictator to one elected leader to somebody else to somebody else.
And being on the ventilator, your IMF loans.
Economically, it's a basket case. I mean, why would you commit so much money?
So I think China was looking at it not purely from the economic point of view, but to bolster its other relationship with Pakistan via the economic relationship. That, if they make power plant, if they make roads, it will strengthen Pakistan's ability to counter India. That was the objective. But uske liye bhi thoda sa to return hona chahiye na from Pakistan.
I mean, ye bhi argument hai. There's this argument that, you want to see a country develop. That, there are two views on this, of course, that, if we see Chinese investment as foreign aid or assistance of some kind, that, foreign aid is not the way you can help a country develop. I mean, it is through trade, perhaps. But, you look at Pakistan today and you wonder, somebody pointed out that, the amount of trade that actually takes place between Pakistan and China is quite negligible.
Yeah.
Whereas we have a difficult relationship with China, and look at the trade between the two countries. I mean, it keeps going up. Contrary to what President Trump says, India is a difficult trading partner. My God, if things were so difficult, China, how is the India-China trade growing?
Yeah.
And at this pace, despite there being so many problem areas.
Is it because the level of Indian and Pakistan economies, Indian and Chinese economy, is not too dissimilar? China may be ahead in certain respects, but India is doing pretty well. So trading between them is far easier and far more profitable. Pakistan has nothing to export. I mean, if your primary export is donkeys to China, I mean, then you can imagine your primary products. So where is that going to be?
Correct.
And, there is a complete structure behind this. Education in Pakistan, 50% of children don't go to primary schools. You don't go to primary, you won't go to secondary, you won't go to higher. So technologically, in this today's world, how are you going to compete? So China realizes this. So therefore, they have got a Chinese labor to deal with the power plant and to build the port, because they find that they are not able to employ people from Pakistan in these projects because of the structural problems. Similarly, what does Pakistan produce? Which China can take. Whereas China produces everything that Pakistan needs.
And how much can Pakistan consume as
Yeah. No, they can consume a lot. They
I
can
mean,
consume all the fancy cars.
outside the military establishment?
Yeah.
Anybody else? I mean, there's hardly any middle class to speak of.
Yeah.
The economy is tanked. And, what can China possibly sell? You need to have some kind of purchasing power as well,
Yeah.
right?
So therefore, the trade is at a low ebb. They're not able to repay the loans. So every 6 months, the Pakistani Prime Minister goes to China to recycle the loans, to जो उनके deposits रखे हुए हैं State Bank of Pakistan, to give them a further 1-year extension. And the Chinese must be thinking, यार ये कहाँ फंस गए? It's one thing to use Pakistan to keep India under check,
Yeah,
but then Pakistan must also step up to the wicket.
correct.
But that is where the problem is in the economic relationship. And then the security of their personnel. Pakistan had assured that they will protect Chinese labor.
Mhm.
But you find that
Far too many instances
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
So, that relationship, economic relationship is not taking off the way Chinese had thought it would. The political and the military relationship continues to be strong. And I think also somewhere China is looking at Gwadar port, that if Pakistan is not able to repay loans,
Hmm.
then like they did in the case of Hamban Tota with Sri Lanka, that you
Correct.
99-year release, that we take control of this.
Yeah. And Pakistan is sacrificing its sovereignty, literally,
Yeah.
in so many ways, just to, sort of.
But they think they're too smart. They think that they can play now China off the US.
Yeah.
This is how they've survived traditionally. Play up one
Yeah.
big power against the other. So, but Chinese are a different kettle of fish.
Thank you, Tilak. Thank you for joining us today. I think this is where we'll end. And we'll look forward very much to your lecture later today. And I hope you'll be able to come again to the International Centre Goa at some other time. We were talking earlier a bit about your next book. What's your next book going to be?
I'm looking at the frontier. I'm looking at the frontier. Though I'm actually not supposed to talk too much as per the publisher of the book. But it's about the frontier.
Okay.
How India's frontiers have expanded, have reduced over the centuries, over the millennia. What are the thought processes, invasions, so things like that.
Okay. My God, that sounds like a serious thing publisher has asked. But
Publishers don't want the idea.
Yeah, I know. This has become a new thing, actually.
Yeah.
Earlier, we used to all talk about our ideas and discuss with people. And now publishers these days say, no, somebody else will pick it.
Because of AI, somebody can do this thing on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And before I know it, the book is already published.
Yeah. No, we run a writer's residency program here at the International Centre. And what I've seen is, especially people who are at the early stages of writing their book, say that, there's only so much I can talk about, and I can't talk about this or I can't talk about that. But at a more advanced stage, when things are more or less done, then we'll try to get you back again next year when the book is nearly done. And until then, look forward. And thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Pushkar, for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation and wish you and the Centre and the podcast all the very best.
Thank you.